how you wanna play it.
Take flight.
Smoke's down. Don't get in my way. Oh my God.
Was good with y'all? It's your boy AD, and to be honest, Riot Games Valorant is an obvious attempt at replicating the years of success that CSGO has achieved. And for those that don't know what Valorant is, it's an upcoming free-to-play multiplayer first-person shooter developed and published by Riot Games, and the game was first announced with the codename Project A in October 2019. It is set to release exclusively for PC players in the summer of 2020. And the closed beta already launched April 7th of this year. Now this game runs off the Unreal Engine, and like I said, this is exclusively for PC players. So for all the console players out there, as of right now, this game won't be for you. So getting into a little bit about Valorant, most of the questions asked is the price and how will it run on PC. I found the answers to that to be pretty encouraging for people who want Valorant to succeed, as Valorant will be free to play and will run at the lowest possible specs at 30 frames per second on an Intel Core i3's 370M CPU with an Intel HD 3000 integrated GPU. Basically, you'll be able to play this game on just about any type of laptop or PC, which is why it gets a lot of comparisons to CSGO, because CSGO is popular for doing the exact same thing. Another thing that's a positive for Valorant is that it's really developed from the ground up to be an esports type game, and that will help it out in the long run, as a lot of people seem to be taking this game very seriously, and that's the first step to actually making a respected esports game. Now with Riot Games, the developers of Valorant, before this game came out, they're really known as the League of Legends studio, but when they showed this game last year when it was codenamed Project A, Riot Games showed us that they've been working on a lot of different games, and that League of Legends will just be one of the many popular additions that they will eventually have to offer to the public, as Valorant is Riot Games' first non-League of Legends game. As of right now, Valorant closed beta is available for all players who have access to it, but the way you get into this closed beta is uniquely through a Twitch drop. So that means you have to watch a stream, and not just any stream. You'll have to go through a streamer that has drops enabled, meaning that Riot Games have allowed them to have their RNG system in their stream, so you can get a code by watching them. And before all that, you also have to have created a Riot Games account and a Twitch account, so you'll be able to connect both accounts to Twitch's website, which works out for Twitch and Riot Games. So I can see why they went that route, as it's just a win-win for both of them. Riot hasn't officially confirmed the release date for Valorant, but people are assuming it's going to come out this year, as they may be pulling a Fortnite, as the closed beta may actually be the final game, but because of the feedback received during Valorant's beta, they may just eventually open it up to the public instead of having the closed beta tag that Fortnite still has on its video game. For some reason, still haven't figured out why. Before we get more into Valorant though, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the video, while also sharing this to help my channel grow. So getting into gameplay, the basis of Valorant is that it's a free-to-play team-based tactical shooter with a 5-on-5 setup. Each match has around 25 rounds, and the first team to win 13 rounds wins the match. At the start of each match, players will pick out agents. Agents have special abilities that like dashing quickly, building walls, calling airstrikes, or creating pools of smoke, which is why this game will always be compared to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, because it has a lot of similar mechanics with a little bit of Rainbow Six Siege mixed in that I could see. The main mode, just like Counter-Strike, is the Diffuse game mode, which is when you have two teams, one attacking and one defending. The attacking has the bomb called the Spike that can be planted on one of several different sites, and if the attacking team plants the spike and protects it to explode, they'll win. So that's the basis of the game, as the defending team will just have to stop them by waiting out the clock each round. Each player has 1 life per round, so if one team's member are all eliminated, that counts as a win for the opponents. Now the thing that separates this game from others is while most tactical shooters don't have characters, except for Rainbow Six Siege, which is why I compared the two games, but Valorant's gameplay is much quicker than Siege. In both Counter-Strike and Siege, players die very quickly, so you'll have to be very careful at all times. With Riot Games wanting Valorant to be an esports, it's designed from the ground up with competition in mind. So whether you play casual or ranked mode, it's all about competition. And one of the frequently asked questions is, will you be able to switch characters in the middle of the game? And you won't be able to do that, as unlike Overwatch, if you pick a character, that means that you'll have to keep everything in mind. So if you pick an agent that's good on defense, you'll be putting your team at a disadvantage if you're on offense. So abilities is one of the unique things in Valorant as far as I can tell, because it covers a wide variety of effects, and some of them are simple, like the ability to create smoke screens like I talked about earlier in my video, and that helps out a lot as you can blind other players or take away their vision. And other agents have powers that let them do things like heal or revive allies, but those are difficult to use because of how fast everyone in Valorant dies. So it's not like Call of Duty where you can get shot a couple times, go behind a corner and start healing. Sometimes, if not most times, when they catch you, it's over. Some agents can make walls disappear, and some can scout out enemy positions with a special arrow or perform a short range dash in a specific direction. A little bit more into the gameplay and how the game starts. You'll have to buy the weapon you want to use at the beginning of each round, unless you survive the previous round, in which case your loadout will carry over. The abilities also needed to be purchased before every round will be single use, but they'll carry over if you die before getting a chance to use one. Most people who have played the game say that you can be successful in Valorant without ever having to use an ability, but you won't be great, as in order to reach the game's highest level, you'll need to master everything that the game teaches you. So that means gunplay and abilities. There's only so long to which you can get away with only being good at shooting. Since this game is so new, Riot Games hasn't really committed to any specific schedules, considering that will include patches for the game because it's just closed beta, but they are still taking feedback. But one of the developers mentioned that League's current one patch every 2 week cycle is a possible model for Valorant, as these are the same people that develop League of Legends. And then he added that these patches will likely come to how often the game will need them. So basically, if a character is OP or if a character got nerfed really bad, then they'll step in. Some people want to know what the Valorant maps are like, and from what I've seen, they're similar to Counter-Strike, as there are bomb sites, spawns for both teams, and points of interest spread throughout that make for great callouts. The setting for the various maps are related to the game's story, with locations all around the world. Each of the 2 Valorant maps so far has unique twists. For instance, one of them has 3 bomb sites while the other has no middle area, and instead has 2 one-way teleporters that make a loud noise every time someone passes through them. Doesn't have definitive time frames for updates, but one thing they mentioned is that Valorant players will likely be getting a new map every 6 months to a year. But that was just a vague idea with no guarantees, so just take that with a grain of salt. Another thing about this game being in closed beta is that the gun skins is non-existent, and there are no character skins, nor are there specific plans to add them. A lot of these things goes back to Valorant just being in closed beta, as when the game officially launches, it will probably come with all these added elements. One of the biggest positives that I've seen coming out of Valorant news is that it will not have loot boxes, and so that means that players will be able to directly purchase the skins they want from the store. The skins themselves are each for specific individual weapons, though there are skin packs that bundle a few weapons together based on their theme. So in theory, this seems like a great model because there's no loot boxes. So this could be a positive. It just depends on how Riot Games plays it, but they haven't given us any further details on that aspect. And the system that Valorant players might have to get used to is just paying for cosmetic rewards after they play. And my last little tidbit strictly regarding gameplay is that we do not know as of yet if Riot Games will implement a season pass, but I believe that they most likely will, as that's been the winning formula to this generation's video games longevity. Moving on to Valorant characters, though the roster will likely expand more than what's already put in the closed beta, Riot said that it will aim to have at least 10 characters ready for Valorant's launch. So we haven't seen or played all 10, but I've looked up an actual list, so I'm going to go over the 9 that we do know about and can talk about. So the first one is called Sova, and the abilities are firing magic arrows that penetrate walls and can travel clear across the map and deal big damage. So this reminds me of players who play in Call of Duty. If you remember the Nuketown map, maybe with Sova you'll be able to throw a fire magic arrow all across the the map when the match first starts, and maybe you'll get a kill. Most likely not though. So with the second, we have Phoenix. Phoenix can curve flashbangs around corners, and that's all I have for Phoenix. Getting into Cypher. Cypher is a defensive powerhouse who can lay trip mines and stick a camera to a wall to watch for flanking attacks. Getting into Jet. Jet can leap into the air and throw knives for a quick, surprising kill. Moving on to Viper. Viper can unleash poison clouds that blind enemies or zone them into a deadly ambush. Then we have Brimstone. Brimstone can call in an orbital bombardment that either helps friends or obliterate enemies. Getting into Sage. Sage is Valorant's resident medic and can heal or revive allies. I haven't seen too much gameplay of Sage, but just guessing from the info I've got from the gameplay, I do not know how useful for healing enemies, as you die pretty quick, but the reviving, I can see that being a huge asset to your team. Getting into Omen. Omen is a shifty rogue who can get behind enemy lines or temporarily blind them. Moving on to Breach. Breach is a seismic force that disorients enemies and ignores the boundaries of walls. And then last but not least, we have Raze, an explosive expert that can bring out enemies with cluster grenades. And that's all I have for the Valorant characters. So moving on into the story, which is one of the less talked about aspects of the game, as they really want to focus on the gameplay mechanics, but they do have a little bit of story to let us in on. So basically going over Project A again, which this game was first announced during Riot Games League of Legends 10-year anniversary stream in October, which is funny that it's the 10-year anniversary for League of Legends and they announced a new game, sort of like passing the torch. So I kind of see what Riot Games is doing. For right now, all we know about the game is that it is a character-based tactical shooter, that it takes place on Earth, but it's a near future version of it. So basically what they said was a cataclysmic event occurs sometime in our future, reshaping the world and its governments. Alongside its geopolitical effects, the event also gives certain hypernatural powers to special individuals. So this is how agents first got their abilities, and they're explaining how the in-game organization Valorant came to be. So more about the story is that Valorant will actually have story elements when it comes out, and they'll be told within and outside the game through media like animated shorts. So for an example I would give is something like Apex Legends, how when they come out with a new season, the new character has certain media animation shorts that explain their story, and sometimes even stories they already have put into Apex. I will bet that's how Valorant is going to roll out their animation shorts. And the events of these will be reflected in the game via dialogue, changes in the agent's look, or environmental elements. So just like any other game that has a story and also a multiplayer, the story and multiplayer is going to try to stay connected in its continuity. So now we're going to get into the infamous Valorant anti-cheating system, which Riot Games has been working on forever, and says that it's invested a lot of time and energy into solving the biggest problems in multiplayer and shooters, which is cheating and lag. So for this, Riot Games has developed a new high-level anti-cheat system that says it should make most common forms of hacking impossible, making Valorant extra secure against aim hacks. So that's pretty interesting, because the development team also said that the design is very intuitive and has every possible exploit in mind, which will make the hardcore hackers, I would think, come out and really try to break this game. But that's besides the point. One example Riot Games gives us in some of the players' hands-on experience is that the crosshair doesn't change colors when it passes over an enemy, because dishonest players could easily write a script that checks those pixels and automatically fires a shot when they change colors. So if you think about that, it's pretty smart in the way they're going about it, as I know in other games like Apex has a huge problem with hackers, and that's something that they do frequently. And sometimes the hackers will use a hack that will outline the enemies across the map along with aim assist hacks. So it gets pretty crazy with hackers. So I'm glad that Valorant is going to extreme lengths to eliminate cheating. Riot Games is also using the server technology developed for League of Legends so they can provide a lag-free experience, and they have dedicated servers for Valorant which will run at a 128 tick rate, which should result in more responsive ballistics and character movement. So for a comparison and for you to kind of gauge this, CSGO's matchmaking uses 64 tick, and for the Valorant servers they're using 128 tick rate. So basically Riot Games is trying to give the fastest and most stable connection for multiplayer servers. That's all I have for Valorant's anti-cheat system. One of the last things I want to touch on with Valorant is that the only con I could find throughout the many reports that I went through about Valorant's closed beta is that they noticed that a lot of weapons look the same, so they couldn't easily tell the difference between the SMG SMG and the assault rifle and kept picking up the wrong guns in the wrong moments. So hopefully Riot Games fixes that, as it will be pretty simple to fix it. They could just implement a few character gun skins or just make the guns more distinctive. And that's the only con I have for Valorant. So getting into fan reviews, starting with the first Twitter user, he's basically talking about the balance between the Valorant and the Apex Legends community. Moving on to the second Twitter user, this is actually from Ninja himself. Basically him sending out more of a tongue-in-cheek type tweet talking about he just wants to play Valorant and none of his friends are available. So that's basically the gist of that tweet. Getting into the next Twitter user, he's talking about how his professional team has disbanded, so he's going into Valorant, and talks about all the good memories he had on his professional team. So hopefully that works out for him. Getting into the fourth Twitter user, this Twitter user is basically saying that they're looking for content creators and pros. So if you know someone, or if you think you will be a good fit, then hit them up. Then the last Twitter user is talking about playing Valorant and completely getting destroyed, as the player somehow got worse than the rank that they started with, which I didn't think was personally possible, but whatever. So in summary, Riot Games' experience in esports will make Valorant a serious contender for at least a year, but the beta Riot Games is showing off is basically just to show people, the world, that they put together a great FPS multiplayer game. And this should diversify Riot Games' fan base, as expanding beyond the battle arena fan base is what they want, as they already have an established base with League of Legends. So I would figure Riot Games has their fingers crossed that Valorant will eventually prove to be more than just CSGO with magic. But let me know, what do you think of Valorant, and have you played the closed beta? You can let me know by commenting down below. So yeah, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed this, make sure to let me know by hitting that like button, subscribe, and share this with your friend, neighbor, dog, or just send this to the person across the street complaining that Valorant is just CSGO with fireballs, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. And with that, I'm out.